Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Mental Matters. I'm Andy Bernstein, your moderator. The show is also hosted by the great Willie Drinkwater and Kristen Perry Long. For almost 2 years, we called our show The Map, and it was the Mental Health and Addiction Podcast. But we decided to change it over the past several weeks. We had our first show 2 weeks ago, and we kind of have a new format of the show, a new name, and we also made some changes as far as content, providing some interesting stories. And we also have Beth Stark, but she's not here with us today. But ultimately, the overarching topic of the show is how mental health is affecting of us all. Let's meet Willie Drinkwater. Willie.
Hello.
Who are you? Good morning. Good morning.
Who are you? That sounds like the Who. Who are you, right?
Who are you?
That's it. I've been in the field of mental health and addiction for over 30 years now. I'm an educator for UMass Boston in the Addiction Counselor Education Program, where I teach addiction and co-occurring disorders in a practicum group in family and addiction. And I have a private practice that it's based in Beverly, but I've been doing teletherapy over the last year and a half now or so.
And you never want to go, and you never want to go back.
Yeah, I was actually up there yesterday, and it was some of the therapists are coming back. They really feel the need for for like body to body physical contact and stuff in a room to do therapy. But well, I don't mean body to body that way. You're giving me the look, Andy. And stuff. They like having face to face contact, though. And I want to maintain my office because, first of all, I'm on a lease till next July, but also too because that initial assessment, I really like to do an initial assessment, face to face with somebody because I want to see their body language, the gesticulations up close that they have, the movements of their face and stuff. So I think I'll always have an office, but I'll probably cut it back to just 1 day a week and stuff because, research out of Harvard is showing that teletherapy, people tend to get into therapeutic relationships faster because they're in their own familiar surroundings, and if something goes south of the border, they can always click off and claim technical difficulty.
Hello,
so.
What? I'm sorry, I can't hear you. What? I'm sorry, we have a bad connection.
Well, that's
all right.
One of the only positives that have come from a positive that has come from this whole epidemic is that maybe people are more comfortable and open to therapies, right?
Yeah.
And you don't have to drive there. All right. On that note, who are you?
Me?
Yeah, who are you? Kristen Perry Long, but who are you?
I am Chris Perry Long, also known as Kristen Perry Long. My mother calls me Kristen.
Oh, okay.
When I'm in trouble.
Okay.
Well, that's like me. They used to call me William if I was in trouble. It wasn't Willie. It was William.
Yeah. William.
All right. Especially the nuns. Sorry, Chris, go ahead.
Sorry, we got a tight clock today. We're up against the clock.
I'm a recovery coach. I've been in this field for a long time. I didn't choose addiction. Addiction chose my children. And yeah, I'm just here.
Well, you are one of the most dedicated people I know in the world of mental health and as a mom, as an advocate. So glad you're here. And we hope Beth will be back next week or the next time we do our show in 2 weeks. So, okay, let's get started. And I know both of you have watched it, but if you watched the Hulu miniseries Dope Sick, which is a fantastic show. People I've talked to think it's a reality show. It's not. But it's a drama based around the Purdue Pharma and its marketing of OxyContin, highlighting the greed and corruption of the Sackler family and really how easy it is to get hooked on painkillers. It's pretty ugly how bad these pharma people are. But even if you take these as prescribed, you can still get addicted. And I read somewhere that 6% of the total population who takes pain meds for more than 1 week can get hooked. But at the same time, people need to take them. Our boy Willie, our man Willie, has written a nice piece about this. I don't know how nice it is, but he's written a helpful piece. So I'm going to let him tell us about it. Sir?
Yeah.
Can we pause for 1 second?
Absolutely, Chris.
Okay. not to interrupt, not to raid in your parade. So I watched the whole dope sick thing, right? I watched it in 2
Mhm.
different times, sitting times,
Yeah.
because it's a lot to take in. I think what you missed a little bit, Andy, is how the Sackler family was able to corrupt the FDA. Like there was a whole episode about, and I learned a lot. Like I didn't know, like those, when you go into a doctor's office, you have those charts with the smiley faces and it gets progressively red and frowny. Right. Well, the Sacklers are the ones that, the Purdue Pharma are the ones that created that chart, and it has to be approved by the FDA, and they approved that chart. So for them, if you really listen to the details of the movie, when you go in and you say, I'm an 8, that's an automatic, like if you're at 10, it's an automatic double for them. That's where they were. And what happens is your mind says, well, I'm an 8 and you gave me more meds and it made me feel better. So if I say I'm an 8 again, I'm going to get doubled again, and so on and so forth. The other big thing is, and I had to go back and rewatch this, and I still have to go back and rewatch it because it's Greek to me, was they have to produce a blood flow chart. I believe that's what it's called. And Willie, you can correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
And again, the FDA has to approve this chart for them to use to market their product. They manipulated the chart, and the FDA either missed it or was bribed to miss it. And how they manipulated it, so it started at 10 and it had, natural spacing, natural spacing, natural spacing. When they got to 30%, from 30 to 100, they shrunk that space. So the blood flow chart, even though it kind of went up, the number that you saw was 30, even though it really kind of went into the hundreds and everything else. So there's like a huge, that's kind of where they left us actually for the, I don't know if there's going to be another series.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. There'll be another season.
But it's like, I'm like,
I don't think that was the series finale either.
No.
But it's definitely
No, I mean not the series finale, this season's finale. I don't think that was it. I think there's another episode.
Good. I hope so, because I've watched all that was available. But having worked with attorneys and taken victim impact statements from families that have lost loved ones, and then as well as people that have been sick and suffering, and hearing their stories and hearing how they went to the doctors or they went in for back pain, like, don't take 2 Tylenol and call me in the morning if it doesn't help. It's, here's some Oxy. And they said that it was ridiculous how easy it was to get meds.
I hate it, okay? But I like it at the same time. I hate watching it. I hate that the greed and how they prey on young people to go and out, and be out, marketing their drugs, and it's all about the money. And the one woman is disgusting the way she operates. She's, the pharmaceutical rep. She's just a greedy person.
Female that's like,
she's wretched. Mm-hmm. Just obnoxious.
The incentives they got was ridiculous. Now, did you hear, before the fight, did you hear that one marketer say, I only work 1 day a week. All I do is I go and stand in the lines.
Oh, I know. At the pill mills. It's disgusting. But at the same time, there are people out there, and that's what I want Willie to talk about. There are people out there, and I've learned this doing this stuff, these shows, is that there are people out there who really do benefit from a painkiller. So, and are in pain, are in literal pain. So, So the point being is does bad apples spoil the whole bunch for everybody else? And is that fair to the people who are actually taking it as prescribed and not abusing it, or are they not abusing it and still getting hooked, which is what they talked about?
So the female, I don't know what she was. She's like a detective or not, or whatever. The female.
That's Cory Booker's wife or partner, Senator Cory Booker, just to FYI.
So how it was left was basically she was going back. The FDA is like, prove it. Show me how people are dying from this. Prove it, right? Mm-hmm. So they did that whole process of trying how to prove it. And where I left off now, if there's more, please tell me, because I'm home sick. I'll watch it in a millisecond. But she did that study where the people that died of overdoses, it was then prescribed and taking it the right way.
That's right. That's right.
where it kind of got left. Like, okay, so what did you discover? Like they had this number, but it wasn't like, it's not resolved. Like I knew
No,
that.
you were spot on. You were spot on. They thought it was ambiguous, and they decided against her, and so it kept it going. But Arthur Sackler earlier in it, said that pharmaceutical marketing is so important back in 1962. He was a marketing guy, right? That's what he did. So it's pretty enlightening. But Willie,
One more question, and this is for Willie and you guys. Is Richard Sackler on the spectrum?
on that show, he is.
Yeah,
He needs a beat down, is what he needs. Yeah. That dude needs a beat down. All right, we got a flow here. I got a flow, Chris. Hold on, we're on point. All right, Willie, tell us your story.
A couple of things to throw into this too, and Please. Stuff is it was probably what 7 or 8 years ago that we had a protest at the State House. There was a new opiate coming out called Zohydro. Zohydro was coming out to market, and Zohydro was 100% pure opiate. It was like medical heroin and stuff. And there was a big protest about it. It was supposed to be, quote, just for people with chronic pain, but that's not the way that it had been set up by the pharmaceutical firm making it. And we had the FDA Select Committee voted 10 to nothing to not bring it to market in that current form it was in. Yet the head of the FDA overruled the Select Committee on Opiate Use and allowed it to come to market and stuff. And it's interesting because like it was probably, I want to say three or 4 years after that this head of the FDA was let go when it was learned that she and her husband had more than $40 million in pharmaceutical stocks. So, I mean, corruption is everywhere.
Isn't there a corrupt FDA person that was with that?
Yeah, his name was Curtis.
Yeah, and then he went and worked for Purdue. I mean, there's like, it's it's Pandora's box, man. It's just gonna.
Well, believe it as I've mentioned before too. I mean, up until 4 or 5 years ago, you could go to Harvard Medical School. 4 years to a medical school, and you weren't required to take any courses on mental health and addiction. What they did offer was a 20-hour elective course on addiction. That was it. And you didn't even have to take it. Now Harvard has a required course on opiate addiction. And, I'm a little cynical. I've been in the business a while and stuff. And I think basically the only reason that they have that course is because they don't want the MDs getting sued for overprescribing opiates. So they want to give these doctors to be a heads up. It's like, you can't just go writing blank checks for opiates anymore. I mean, I know if you're in an emergency room and they want to give you, say, Percocet or something because you've had an injury, it's about an hour-long process for them to fill out the paperwork in the emergency room, and you're only get like what 3 or 5 tablets. Yeah, Chris.
Well, I was going to say, hold on, let me say something. What was really interesting is that because my sister's a nurse, one of my sisters is a nurse. A management, and she says that there was a Disneyfying of the healthcare system where you started getting reviews, and the better reviews and not leaving people in pain, the more payouts you got from the insurance companies. So
it's so many facets. I mean, I walked out of the dentist office 2 weeks ago today. I got my tooth pulled with an Oxy prescription.
Well, you better get rid of it.
I never picked it up.
Good.
When I went and I picked up my prescription for COVID, they said, "Oh, do you want your Oxys?" I'm like, "No, I don't. Remove it."
Yeah, when I've had oral surgeries and stuff, the oral surgeon will say, "Do you want a script for Percocet?" And I'll say, "Can you write me a script for 2?" And they go, "What?" I said, "Can you write me a script for just 2 Percocet? Because that's all I'm going to need to get through this initial day once the Novocaine wears off. So I don't need anything beyond 2. We
know someone, again, to be named later. We know someone who used to go to the dentist all the time to get painkillers, to doctor shop to go to painkillers. So
to have an older gentleman that would go into the parking lot of a hospital he'd take out a razor, intentionally cut his leg, and then go into the emergency room because that's how he was going to get his Percocets.
So what do you
Self-harm.
do? So what do you do if you're in pain and there's post-op, which is what we were going to talk about?
Yeah.
I mean, what do you do if you're actually genuinely in pain and you need to relieve your pain? Do you suffer with the pain and deal with it?
No.
Yeah, whether or not you have an addiction issue, the thing that I always say to people, the fact of the matter is, and I spoke about this at length a long time ago with Woody Geisman over at Right Turn. The two of us were talking about the whole issue, and it's like, if you're in pain, your body heals at a slower rate.
Correct.
And stuff. So you want to manage the pain, even if, quote, pills weren't your thing. Even if they weren't your thing, it's really advisable to have someone else hold the prescription for you and give them to you as they're prescribed. The other thing that so many doctors are from the island of Moron, excuse the term, it's real easy for them to give you a script. Oh yeah, here's a script for 90 Percocet. I want you to take 3 a day for 30 days and just stop. Well, who the hell can do that? You've been taking 3 a day. What the doctors need to do is to learn to titrate the prescription down to 0. So that's another key factor too, is you want to make sure someone else holds the medication and it's titrated down over the course of treatment with that medication, which is something they often skip.
So then, okay. So again, what do you do when you have pain? Do you just like ride through it? Is pain something that we should kind of learn to deal with?
No.
You're shaking your head. Why?
Willie just told you. Willie just told you. So if you have surgery, right, and you're in pain, what are you? You're uncomfortable. You're tossing. You're turning. You're grimacing. You're not sleeping. You're not resting. You're revving yourself up because you're in pain. The point of pain meds is to remove that pain so that your body can slow down, so it allows the blood to flow so you can heal.
Okay.
So I always say, like Willie said, I mean, if you my son, he had shoulder surgery. I don't even remember how long ago he had shoulder surgery, but the first time he had shoulder surgery, that was like the nightmare. That was like his off and running. The second time he had somebody give him his pain meds because A, he's an addict in recovery, but B, because he knew like his brain was going to say, you need more, you need more, you need more, you need more. So he recognized, if you're afraid of becoming addicted to drugs, then be proactive,
Absolutely.
You have to let your body rest. And if the pain meds are what are going to allow you to rest, then you have to take them carefully and like with the support of others.
My wife held mine. I had 3 shoulder surgeries. The last shoulder surgery, I think I took it one day when I got home, and that was it. I used the ice, that wonderful ice cooler they give you after surgery. Used that, and took Advil. And Advil, and I was good. The first one was really hard, and I could see myself getting hooked on those really easily.
The thing that doctors often forget too is they don't even think in terms of going through the anti-inflammatories first, because if you take away the inflammation from a nerve ending, presto, no pain. What a surprise. That's why, to me, my godsend medication, my number one drug is Motrin 800s. I take a Motrin and, all the osteoarthritis is gone for hours and hours and hours. I
do naproxen. I like naproxen.
Yeah, naproxen's another one. Norgesic Forte is another one. Yeah, I mean, there's a whole class of anti-inflammatories that doctors oftentimes they go to the painkiller. Why not go with the least addictive, so to speak?
Where can we have a special guest in the virtual green room? But where can people learn more about policy or more information about proper use of painkiller, pain meds, or
Google. If you just Google that, but you want to look for reliable resources. You want to look for, research that's being done at the major universities. You don't want to look for research that pharmaceutical firms are doing. Right. Mayo's a good one too. Yeah. You want to look at university studies. You never want to use a pharmaceuticals because, statistics, you can have statistics say anything you want, as we know by the pharmaceutical firms. When Chris was talking before about the blood flow, I mean, that's manipulation of statistics, So,
Yeah, don't do that.
so university studies, you can Google, pain management university studies, and I'm sure you'll get a whole slew.
Yeah, and avoid, because the other thing was Purdue was sponsoring like the American Pain Management Association, which was basically a ruse to, talk about pain meds and the validity of them or the viability of them. So,
it's pharmaceutical firms like them that stopped hospital personnel from being able to go to, special dinners, and special
the Sunshine Act, the Sunshine Act.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to on a lighter note. He's in the green room in the
Probably
virtual
have to
group.
know it now because we've kept him there for so long.
I think he signed all the walls.
I don't want to mansplain. I don't want to mansplain, but Chris, that's on you. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. That's me. That's on you. All right, let's welcome a Boston comedian who has performed thought-provoking comedy for many, many years. His act is clean. He's been called a cross between Lewis Black and Dennis Miller. He's a very community-oriented guy. He does a lot of comedy to help nonprofits. And let's welcome the pride of Winthrop, Massachusetts, Joey Carroll. Joey C. He's gone.
Oh, here we go.
There he is.
What's going on there?
Focus, Joey.
I'll tell you something. I'm in this green room, and it's the worst green room I've ever been in. It's my screen porch, but still, it's nice to be in the waiting room. But just
how are you?
Just watching and listening, I get teed off because my own experience with opiates goes back to 1981, where I was hit by a car and spent a couple of weeks in an ICU with morphine drip.
Ooh.
Got moved into a room, and the level of pain I had was just, I was ripped apart, put back together, and it was a long run. But they would give me 2 Percocets every 4 hours for pain. And that was a good standard for the pain I was at. And at one point, about 3 days into a normal room out of the ICU, my doctors came in and they said, we need to have a chat. And I went, what's this? And they said, well, you have very high tolerance for pain, which is great. You also have a very high tolerance for pain meds, which is not so great. And these are very addictive. And we don't want you leaving here with another problem. Keep in mind, I am 18 days into a 3.5-month hospital stay. I've broken a lot of stuff. I had a temporary colostomy. I had a bag to pee in. I was really in a lot of pain. It was legitimate pain. And they put the fear of God into me. They said, this stuff is very addictive. And I went, okay, what's our move? And they went, well, we can wean you down. We'll take you down from 2 every 4 to 1 every 4 to 6 and go from there, and then get you to Tylenol 3 with codeine, and then get you to Tylenol. And within a week, I was on Tylenol because they knew that I'm also, I'm a type A. I like to have 2 dinners because 1's nice, but 2's better. So why wouldn't I? Why wouldn't I have the best blind date with the worst relationship of my life? As I call the first time people will use a drug, it's the best blind date with the worst relationship of your life. Yeah. You walk out.
That's a great way to phrase it.
I'm going to spend the rest of my life with this, and then 3 months later, your car's gone, your house is gone, and that's it. But if they knew that in 1981, it bothers me that they claimed that they didn't know that in 2000.
Right.
Yeah, and that's the thing that bothers me. Is that plausible deniability is not plausible. They knew that. The problem was Pharma got into rewriting the way pain was managed and treated.
Exactly. Right. That's just it. Like, that's it. That's the scary thing.
And even like the university studies are fantastic, but who funds it? Because whoever funds it skews the needle.
Well, that's what they were saying. And and I had read about this, that Boston University Medical Center actually, there was a doctor, and I can't remember his name, but he wrote a little article for the New England Medical Journal and that became the white
Oh
paper.
yeah, it was
that
like
they
a half
used.
a page. It
Yeah,
was a
I didn't
half a
know
page.
that, but it was a
Yeah.
blurb,
That
and they
came out in
used
the
that at
show.
the study, and they
Yeah.
used that as the study to go around in 1981, around the same time you're talking, and they used that as the study to say that these drugs are not addictive.
And
Go ahead.
it's brutal. It's blatantly lying. But then again, in 1981, they were telling us cocaine was a recreational drug and not addictive.
Well, and also in 1981, right, our heroin addict was the homeless bum on the street that, slept on the drain pipes or not the drain pipes, the air vents out of the buildings.
Yeah, the heating vents in Cambridge. I remember the guys.
So that's what, that was the heroin addict, and nobody ever put, oh, the heroin addict used to be a proficient, stock exchange person. We never talked about where that person came from to get to the point of where they were. So the stigma on top of it totally was like, well, wait a minute. We know where this person was and how this person got here, but we're not going to let anybody know that we knew that. So you're right.
Yeah. I mean, even with coke, there was the stigma. If you did powder coke, yeah, that was okay. If you did crack, well, then, we need to punish you at a different degree and everything else. It was like, oh, no.
The cocaine were the rich people, right? The cocaine users were the
Studio 54.
Furious and the movie stars and the wealthy people.
It was glamour. But my issue is really those pharma reps, right? Because they're like hired assassins.
They come in and they show you these studies, and it's like half the time they don't even have a medical background. Do you know where the majority of women pharmaceutical reps come from? Do you know where they recruit?
The Golden Banana.
No, close. They actually the number one area that pharmaceutical firms go after to get women representatives are SEC cheerleaders. Did you know that? No, seriously. SEC cheerleaders in football.
Isn't that something? I mean, it's
and they come in with studies that they've been trained in how to present these studies. They don't know anything about this.
So that's why they run TV commercials all the time, which are funny as hell to me, by the way. It's like, here, let me take this, but I could get pancreatic cancer.
That's the thing that drives me crazy.
You get all that stuff.
Anytime you see a commercial for a psychoactive drug, they say, go to your doctor. To what? My primary care physician? You think he's going to refer me to a specialist? No, because that counts as points against him with the insurance company. So you're going to have a primary care that's going to be dispensing a psychoactive drug.
All right, we're going to talk about Joey right now because we're going to get on a tangent. Joey's there
that's why you're
giving
the
us up
moderator.
her time, and I got to get you two off of your soapbox here. Okay, so Joey. Wow, I'm feisty today. Well, I live in New England now. This is what I do.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. Joey, tell us about yourself. Who are you? And give us a little background about yourself, and we'll start the line of questioning.
I grew up in a house with an alcoholic father for the first 7 years, and then he was gone, so things get better. And, I grew up in Cambridge with a group of friends that looked like an early Benetton commercial, except the clothes weren't near as nice. And that's how I grew up, in the midst of diversity and inclusion, and it was awesome. And then I started my drinking started in junior high school. High school is when I turned semi-pro. That's when it became the focus, not the spice. And and went through that. And by the time I was 25, I was all wrapped up and done. But in that time, in 1981, at 19 years old, I had my first interaction with those opiates, and those doctors saved me. They saved me from a lot of pain that I never got entrapped into it later on, because I had remembered the lessons of what I learned in traction in 1981. Is these are very addictive, and you know who you are. And that's enough. I mean, drinking and coke was plenty for me. I didn't need one more thing. And at that time, I thought coke, I honestly I thought it was recreational, because every study came out, every news program, it's a recreational drug. There's no danger for getting addicted. And then
the cover of Time magazine. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's when I saw people who started to smoke it. And that was the game changer. Everything changed. guys that you had known for your whole life, you would see them and you go, what happened? You're living in your car. And they go, well, yeah, I lost my job. The wife threw me out. Go, what happened? Well, I was freebasing and that was it. And every conversation started that way. And I had a very good friend who had a car crash, got a settlement, went down to New York with a pocket full of cash. And he came back telling me how he's walking down the street. He bought a new leather jacket and a watch. And he's walking down the street and the guy said, hey, man, you have a freebase? He went, no. And he goes, you want to try it? He goes, really good. Brings him in the house. 4 days later, he leaves there with just a leather jacket because he said, I had to come home with something. But he was telling me, he goes, it's better than sex. You're going to try it. And I started laughing. I went, dude, you did me a favor. He goes, what? I went, I know what I'll do for sex. I don't want anything with that much of a hold on my life. I will guarantee you I will never hit the button. And he inadvertently saved me from going down that road. So it's just, I don't know why, but I get saved from a lot of really bad stuff early on. But I learned and it stuck with me. And by the time I was 25, my drinking and coke was where all my friends were the same way. So that's in my defense. When you hang around and everybody in your group is a madman, madman is normal for you. And that was my normal. And then I would go fishing with my cousin Glenn, and we would leave on a Saturday morning or Sunday morning. I would show up from wherever I was the night before, reeking of stuff I didn't even drink. I drink beer and sweat whiskey. But I'd show up, and he's on his second cup of coffee at 6 a.m. And I'm looking going, dude, it's Saturday. You didn't go out? And he had been sober about 4 years at that time. And he goes, no, he goes, this is what I do now. He goes, it's different. It's different for everybody. He never preached to me. He never pushed me, but he showed me. And
he showed you by example.
Were you performing? Were you in comedy at that point?
No, I had a job at the phone company. I was on a fast track to be either working at the post office, drinking cough syrup from a paper bag, or some other life choice that I just didn't want. I was always funny, didn't know there was an avenue for it. So after a while of showing up and not showing up, I would miss fishing. I'd miss a beautiful day and be pissed. And finally, I just, that term surrender came into play. And I never liked the term surrender because to me, it sounded too much like just giving up. But then I thought about a treaty. And when you sign the terms of a surrender under a treaty, there are certain dictates in the treaty. There are things you give up and there are things you get in return. The first thing you get in return, people are not trying to kill you. The war is over. And I looked at my life and thought, all I have to do is give up these things. And I get everything on the other side of that table is mine. I get trust back. I get accountability back. I get the promise of a better life, at least the opportunity of that. And I thought, okay, that's a surrender I can live with. But it was the word surrender that I had a hard time with because it was the white flag. And I went into it not as the white flag, but I went into it like a business agreement, going, I'll give up this portion of my life, but the promises of what my life can be from this point forward are amazing. So that's when I hit the surrender button. And I went to my cousin Glenn and I went, I think I'm ready to try one of your meetings. And, he didn't do the I told you so. He just had this little light smile and went, well, when do you want to go? I'm like, now. And I walked into my first meeting, part of me thinking, the party's over. It's going to kind of suck for a while. And I was so wrong. I was 180 degrees off course. The party just started.
So then you started saying, okay, well, I want to be a comic. Is that kind of how it started after?
No. That's still a few years off. I was doing the 30 and 30. I was on track for my 30 and 30. And 28 days in, I get hit on my motorcycle. So I'm in an ambulance on the way to the hospital. So I didn't get the pink cloud. The pink was just the gauze on my ankle. So we get to the hospital and I'm like, I really don't want pain meds. And they went, have you looked at your foot? You need some pain meds. I'm like, okay, all right, we'll get through this. I had to have a surgery and the whole 9 yards. And That was another interesting conversation. They were talking about taking my foot away from me. And I was like, I've got plans for my foot. That's not going to happen.
Right.
And so we negotiated that deal. So I kept my foot and 13 months of crutches, and I get back on my feet. And the hard part was the only people I knew in recovery, I was living in Cambridge, but my recovery community was West Roxbury, Dedham, over that way. I didn't know anybody in my own neck of the woods that was in recovery, not a person. I didn't know anything about getting a book, about getting to central services or any of that. So I was floating, and basically I lived via the phone with my cousin, checking in with him. But the most powerful thing that kept me from not going back at that point was spite, because a lot of people had seen me, doing well, and then they went up, wheels off the wagon now. And I was just like, I don't know if I can curse on this. Can I curse on this?
Yeah,
Okay.
not too bad.
So when I would hear people saying, "Oh, well, it's a matter of time now, you're not able to get to meetings," I was like, "Well, fuck you."
Right.
Out of spite, I will not give you the satisfaction. I'll hang in there with every fiber I have, and that's the way I got through the next year and a half until I could get back to going to meetings again. But I stuck it out. I stayed in touch with Glenn. Glenn was my anchor throughout the whole thing. And, from time to time, I would be able to get together with him and hit a meeting. But for the most part, I wasn't on the track of 30-30, and I had never branched out into my own neck of the woods. So that was a whole different thing. And I had made a commitment before I get hit to do the Sober Day Road Race, which was a 5K. And I kept that commitment. I did that 5K on crutches.
Oh, wow.
Was,
Okay.
Yeah. And everyone was going, "Well, you can't do that, obviously." And I was like, "What do you mean I can't do that? Of course I can do that. It's not going to be easy, but I'll do it." And
Right.
So at that point,
Can you kind of talk about because honestly, you've made it. I know it's hard, and a part of me is saying this guy's not really an addict if he can just put it down, and it's not because you're not. It's just because of my conversations with younger kids. They're like, oh, if they can just stop in one time and get through all these hurdles that what was the dark stuff? What did the dark stuff look like? If you're comfortable talking about
in the
it.
beginning,
You make it sound
in the
real-
beginning, the dark stuff was when I was out there, drinking and doing blow in the 80s was, missing work or showing up to work from a bachelor party and getting sent home because you was in no condition to go to work, getting a DWI. And at that point, after the DWI, here's how crazy the addictive mind is. My thought process is, well, I can't drink and drive, but I can go out with my friends, get in a car with anybody who's drunker than I. But I won't get arrested. I'll get a telephone pole. And somehow that seemed like the better choice. So, and at one point, that's one of the things that kicked in with me was I'm willing to take my chances of getting killed on the ride home because I'd rather not get pulled over and get locked up. It's not making any sense, but it's addictive logic. It doesn't make any sense. If it makes sense to you, you get some fucking problems. And
Go ahead. Go ahead, Jim.
And that was the kind of thing that I knew that part of my thought process was gone. And when I saw the example of a normal life, or the most normal I had ever seen, I didn't have that anywhere in my life. And it was just like, well, that's kind of what I'd like to do. And it was that power of example. It's like, I kind of want what he has. He's got a normalcy, a structure, a stability. If he says he's going to be there, he's there. And, with that help and that encouragement, and again, those hard lessons I learned early on, those are not random encounters. Those are little God moments. When those doctors walked into my room, that planted a seed that's still with me. And it's so deep into me. I've had surgery since then, and they've given me the prescription that everybody gets, and you go, I might need one a day for 2 or 3 days after getting your. I had a deviated septum, And that was, I took one a day for 2 days and I was done. I've had other stuff and it's the same thing. I've taken one and done. And it's not, it's like a healthy fear of stepping into that darkness and that unknown, because I've had conversations with people who don't quite get it. They don't understand. And they go, you could probably go back to having one or two. And I'm like, I'm a numbers guy. And I go, what's the upside? I said, that's me betting. That's like betting $100 million on the opportunity that you might make $1. The risk reward isn't there for me. So I've got this part of my brain that's clicking and just going, no, why would you ever? You can't do that. And it's
the cost benefit analysis.
Well, yeah, let me add something, Chris, because I'm hearing Joey, and I can say, well, it seems like you can't decide. Well, there's no arbitrary, or there's no checklist of what makes Joey have an addictive mind compared to someone else. You can't measure it, right? I don't think so. I think for everybody's different. For Joey, had he continued on his path, he probably would have had a far bigger problem. It doesn't mean that he doesn't have a compulsion for it. He just stopped before.
No. It's even more so than that. I mean, we would go out on a Wednesday night and basically stay out until Sunday. I'd go to work from whoever's house I was at. There was no shutting down. And the lie I would tell myself is, I'm going out for one drink. Well, how much money are you bringing? $1,200. Why? Because we might wind up in Canada. That's the kind of thing that happens on a Wednesday night with no plan and no breaks. Once you get going down that hill, it's game on. And that's the part where, and even going through like the drug driving program that I had to go through, there were little things in that I picked up, and they went, you don't always get in trouble when you're drinking, but every time you get in trouble, you are drinking. Yeah, that's kind of a big bell ringer for me.
Right, it's not good for you. It's not good for you, period.
No,
right?
But I mean, I just saw the disappointment in my mother's face that I wouldn't be there, or I'd sleep through a Saturday or whatever it was. And, don't get me wrong. I mean, I saw the stuff that I was missing out on myself, because you miss a beautiful Saturday, that one's gone. You might get 1,000 more, but that one's gone and you pissed it away. And
Right.
and those things started to really click in my mind. And it's like, that's not it. I don't want to miss out on everything. I want to have everything. I want to be able to taste everything, try everything, do everything. And also the faith portion was very heavy with me, because I realized that I would not get everything that I wanted, but I'd get everything that I needed. And the stuff that I didn't get that I wanted was really bad for me. And it would take some time for that to unfold and learn that lesson. It's like, oh, now I understand. You're looking at the rearview mirror 3 months later and you go, oh, now I see why that didn't go my way. It went my way. It absolutely went my way.
It's kind of like growing up, right? And our parents say, no, you can't do that. You can't do that. You can't. So you go and you do it, and you're like,
I'm sorry, the rain is actually louder than my phone. I'm trying to turn the volume up.
No problem. But again, okay, so was, I guess what I'm trying to find out is, was your sobriety or stop drinking the impetus for you to say, okay, well, I'm going to pursue something that I always want to do, and that's how you got in the comedy? Or was it well,
it's funny, because one of the things it did for me, it's like I've had like 3 midlife crises, and 2 of them before 30.
Me too. Me too.
So at 25, I realized there's more, and I start looking at jobs, things I want to do, and how I want to live my life, and I want a little more freedom. So I went into sales, and I went into real estate. I went into cars. I went into real estate. I went into mortgages. All that stuff where I could sort of keep hours that I liked and have a little wiggle room to get out when I needed to. And then via real estate, I met Patty Ross, another comic, and we were always telling stories in the office, really funny stories. And it got to be, would have real estate people coming in, and would have mortgage people coming in. And they wouldn't be coming in for a deal. They'd be coming in to hear a story about what we did the night before. You know, where we went for lunch, whatever it was. It was always a funny story. Everything was a funny story. And at that point, Patty knew somebody whose nephew was doing open mics. And she said, we should call him. And we called this guy, Bob Carney, a friend to today. And he hooked us up with our first open mic. I drove to it in a Maserati. Things were going well at that point. I had turned things around. And I did that first show and I went, this is what I want to do. And within a year, I was out of real estate, out of my Maserati, and in a VW Rabbit, happier than I'd ever been. Not making the money, but having a blast. And as I tell people, comedy is like joining the plumbers union. For the first few years, you're just working and hauling shit. And then all of a sudden you get paid. So it's okay. It comes if you're patient and you work like anything else. And then through comedy, the recovery really tightened up because there are so many comics in recovery. And also the recovery in comedy has been beneficial in many ways because we can give back on a different level. We are involved in a lot of fundraising with people. We're involved with, you know, walking people in through different programs and helping them in the door. And, you know, we'll talk about our recovery on stage, and somebody after a show who's a little ambivalent will say, you know, I was thinking about whatever. And you go, you know, here's a number. Here's my number. If you want to call. And, you know, sometimes that actually happens and leads to somebody doing the right thing and going forward on that path.
You break down walls with your comedy, I'm guessing, in a lot of cases for people.
Yeah,
well, comedy's honest.
Yeah, comedy is honest.
So what do you think about, and I was thinking about this, why do you think so many comedians have come through Boston? If you could say, what is it? Because we have so many that have come through this area. Why?
Stand in line at Dunkin' Donuts at 6:30 in the morning and listen to the people in line.
Right?
It is inbred in us that we're all sarcastic bastards.
Yes, we question everything.
A hair trigger that's perfect for comedy. Because if you're in the middle of a bit and somebody chimes in, you turn into the 5th grade kid you used to be when someone made fun of your sneakers and you make fun of his mom. It's over. It's over. That's how we're brought up.
Yeah.
That's how we're brought up. I'm telling you, it's to the core.
Because I think it's.
I think also in the old,
he's done with us. No, there he is.
I think also in the 80s and stuff for people working the Boston scene too is like you go over to Cambridge, you do your smart stuff at Catch a Rising Star, then you go to Stitches and you would do your college humor. Then you go to Nick's Comedy Stop and you do the older generation humor. So you really had to be versatile. You really had to be versatile to work Boston. Well, the saying was, if you could work Boston, you could work anywhere. You know, seriously.
Well, I'm a little offended by that Nick's Comedy Stop because that's the only one I've ever been to out of all the lists that you list. And I'm not.
That's where Charlestown was fighting, Somerville was fighting Medford in the audience. You know.
Oh my God! Yeah.
The Bulletproof Lounge at Nick's. Yeah.
I've been threatened with a stabbing on stage at Nick's. And again, being this kid from Cambridge, I went, you don't have the balls to stab. I know people that stab people. You know what they do? They don't tell them they're going to stab them. They just stab
them. They just do it. Yeah.
And that ended that. And he wound up getting tossed down the stairs at the end of the night.
Yeah.
Security at Nick's was wonderful.
The middle 80s was wild. I mean, I remember a comic. I don't even know if it was yourself, Joey, or somebody, but I heard a comic one night going, I decided to give up cocaine for one primary reason, because I decided I wanted to own things again. He was in an apartment with Kenny. It might have been Kenny. And then, of course, there was our other favorite guy who said, I hate cocaine, but I love the smell of the stuff,
Oh, yeah.
Donnie. I mean, Lenny Clark is a sober guy. What, Steve Sweeney, another.
Really?
You know, it seems like there's a lot of guys that just kind of, you know, hit
Yeah,
the
well,
wall or
I
not.
think the middle
decided-
80s. Yeah, it was, like the middle 80s, the late 80s, where a lot of comics just started waving the flag, man. It was just too much.
Yeah. And there's actually a lot of long-term, good, solid recovery.
Yeah.
And a lot of those guys actually go and speak at jails and interact and do community work. I did a
Sweeney goes to Bedford, VA. Yeah.
Yeah, I was doing stuff with a dual diagnosis place for a while as a mentor, and you know your level of engagement with recovery in Boston as a comic can be huge. It's a huge footprint. But I also think part of the reason we had so many comics come out of Boston is you had a great local scene with homegrown people, but you also had the colleges that were feeding that minor team. So
Great point.
guys would go out to a show, girls would go out to a show and go, hey, I think I should try that. And bang, you know, somebody going to Emerson or Berkeley or BU or whatever,
Yeah.
and they jump on stage and all of a sudden they're dropping their major and pissing their parents off.
Yeah.
Christine Hurley. I don't. Is that her name? Christine Hurley.
Yeah.
Oh my God, she's hilarious. I think she was a waitress. I think that's what. I could be wrong, but she just went in the comedy. She's tremendous. I don't know if you've.
Yeah.
Okay, so now you're performing again in front of live audiences, correct?
Yes.
What's that been like? How's that been? How weird has it been? Has it been weird?
How can I explain it to someone who's not on a stage? It is fucking without a condom.
Mike's going to fire us.
Is there
He's going to
anything
fire us. Yeah. That's okay. That's okay. I love you, Mike. Okay. It's okay. So why
Also,
is
for
that?
me, that, you know, it goes back to mowing the green room.
Why
Oh,
so?
God.
It's just weird. It's just not
The gloves are off. You're actually engaged with people who are not wearing masks and sitting 40 feet away from you. There's a connection. You're not trying to do a Zoom show where you don't hear anybody laughing, or you're outdoors and people are flashing their lights and honking their horns. It
Sounds like Route 1.
I mean, the things that people have done to get through this pandemic. I never did any of the Zoom shows or any of the other crazy outdoor stuff. I waited. And and then when we got to go back in person, it was great. It was great. And it's been going well ever since. People are starting to come out. Although one weird thing that happened is when they lifted restrictions on how many people could come to a show, the numbers went down because people were happy with 60 in a room that held 200, but they were a little skeptical of going out to a room with 200 that held 200.
Got it. So it was a quality audience.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And people who would come out, again, it's almost like you got people coming out of jail for a year and a half. And they just want to live their lives again and have some fun and laugh. And they're ready. They are chomping at the bit to have fun.
Is COVID part of your act? Talking about COVID at all?
It's part of everybody's act.
Okay.
It has to be. It's, you have to acknowledge it.
What would, not say, hey, say something funny, but what would be kind of one of the topics of COVID that you would, isolation, mental health, or is it just laughing at yourself?
I will ask a crowd what the longest they spent, who has the record in that crowd for longest time in the same pajamas without a shower. And so far I got 8 days for one woman.
Wow.
I looked at her husband and I went, you had COVID? He went, yeah. And I went, lost your smell? He went, absolutely. And that was it.
Like bad milk. Like bad
But
milk.
I
Here,
mean,
smell this, right? I can't smell
everybody I know-
anything. Yeah.
Everybody I know had been 2 days, 3 days. And then I was like, I need to know the high water mark. I need to know what this can go to. And it was 8 days. But again, she's also taking care of her husband with COVID. So the time for a shower was probably not the main focus.
Okay. So you're using that as part of the healing process, I guess, for people to.
Yeah. I mean, look, I do a lot of stuff about death And the way I see it is, if you can make people laugh at what they're afraid of, you're taking away the fear.
I'm not
Okay.
afraid of dying, but I hate
I
death.
am. I am
You hate what?
scared to death.
I hate death. Like, I lost my dad in January, and like
Oh yeah.
yesterday he was memorialized in Fort Lauderdale, and because he's a vet, and his name was put on a wall, and I couldn't go because of stupid COVID. And and I miss him. Like, I hate
Yeah.
death. I'm mad because it took him away. He's 91, but
Yeah.
still, it's like it's my dad.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if he's 115. The loss is your loss. And the closer you are to him, unfortunately, the deeper you feel that.
Yeah.
Hey,
You don't
Joey,
realize how close you are. It's easy to say, oh, my mom is my best friend. My dad is my best friend. We tell everybody, but when they're gone, it's like, I don't know.
Yeah, and you don't know how you're going to react until it actually happens. You may think you're going to react a certain way, and then when it happens, it's nothing like you preconceived.
When my mom died, I would stop by my mom's just about every day with a turkey sub, bananas, stuff like that, a cup of tea, whatever, just about every day. And when she finally died, she was 79, and it was cancer, and it was quick. It was relatively quick. But when she passed, I was holding her hand at a hospice. I had a show at Nick's that night. And it's like 6 o'clock. I asked the nurse if she thought I could go to Nick's and come back and catch my mother before she left. And she's like, well, I don't know. It's really close. My mother died before the show, and then another comic covered my time. But I was on stage the next night. But what I wasn't aware of is when I walked into a supermarket, and first thing you step into is the produce section, I would see the bananas and start falling.
Yeah.
And I couldn't look at a banana.
That's my worst fear right now.
My eyes up.
It's the biggest fear for me right now. That's all I think about is losing the people that I care about, my old people, losing my my wife and dog. Right. This is all I think about. Like, and it's terrible.
I think when we were shut down, it intensified all that thinking too. It definitely did. I mean, I'm not afraid of death. I'm afraid of my two sons. They're 35 and 38, and they're saying, Dad, don't you worry, Dad. When you start to get senile, we're going to take you out. And it's like, yeah, thanks, God. If I misplace my car keys, that's not a sign necessarily that I'm gone, because I do that now. It's definitely go. Well, it depends on how often you misplace them. I'm going, great, great.
Hey, Joey, I have two questions. Sorry to cut you off, Willie. I have two questions for you. One, have you flown since COVID?
No, not yet.
Bizarre. I think so. People don't talk to each other anymore. It's so weird. I think flight attendants really just want to make sure they have their trash taken care of and that you wear your mask. I swear to God.
They're not attacked. And they're not attacked.
Yeah. There's no communication on a plane anymore. I find it like, so you got to sit there with your mask. So I was just curious on that. What do you have coming up that you can talk about?
Boston Comedy Festival is this week. I'll be popping down to Somerville for one or two events. I'm not even sure what they are at this point, but I'm also doing a show up in Bangor, Maine on the 20th. And then hopefully I'll be at the Ocean Casino in Atlantic City sometime in December.
Nice. So you're busy.
So, I'm getting there. It's Good. Getting back. It's getting back. The other thing was picking and choosing where and when you're going to work, more important now than ever. It's just being off stage that long made me realize two things: how much I love it and how much I don't need it every day.
That's
I'd rather
cool.
have a quality show than go out and do shows I don't want to do. Just to chase a buck. It's not worth it.
Right.
I love it. All right. So, and then you also work with nonprofits too. And
yeah. We're waiting for things to open up so we can do a show at the region for either more, Massachusetts Organization of Addiction Recovery, and also for Right Turn.
Good old Marianne.
Yeah.
Marianne Frangoulis, the ever-ready bunny.
She is funny, huh?
She may not be able to ride any of the rides in an amusement park, but that little woman has done more for addiction than anybody I know.
Yeah, absolutely,
She
man.
is like Mighty Mouse, and she
Absolutely
fights
amazing.
tooth and nail. She is a fucking warrior. Sorry about the language, but
She's always at the State House.
She's
advocating
great.
for us.
She's
Yeah,
great.
She's always at the State House. advocating.
Not cute either.
Give your website.
funnyjoey.com. And I'll leave it with this, Chris. This is what happened with me with my mother. I had lost 3 brothers, a sister. So when my mother died, I thought that Thanksgiving was going to be the hardest one of my life. And I had this moment of just epiphany, was like, oh my God, she's with my brothers. She's with her brothers and sisters. Everyone's back together. There's a place at the table for me, and they will be pissed if I show up early. If I show up late, they'll finally be happy I showed up late. But there's a place at the table. And it's amazing how that changed my mind. And again, it took a little while for that to happen. It wasn't overnight, but it was from February till November. That hit me, and it was just like a oh my God moment. It's like, oh, okay, this is gonna be all right. This is gonna be all right.
I mean, he died in January. I went down in November of last year. I was down there this time last year, and I spent 6 months down there taking care of my mom and my dad. So we had Thanksgiving together, and we had Christmas together, and so now we're going through it, and it's. I mean, I'm sad and I miss him, but he was 91, and he was not. He knew who I was when he died, and I take that. That's my piece, you know.
And you got to spend that time with them, which is precious.
Mm-hmm.
You'll never, of all the regrets you'll ever have in your life, that will never be one of them.
Nope.
As hard as it was to do, you'll treasure those moments.
I do.
And I know you do already.
Yep.
That's awesome. Joey, you're a good dude. I appreciate you.
It's good to see you again, Andy.
Likewise. Thank you. And if you or a loved one, not you, Joey, but you, you or a loved one is suffering with mental health, who should they call, Willie, Chris?
You can call me. You can call Willie.
Yeah.
You can call
SAMHSA? Not SAMHSA. BSAS.
NAMI. Well, NAMI.
Throw some acronyms at me.
You've got
please.
NAMI, National Alliance on Mental Illness. You've got DBSA, Depression Bipolar Support Alliance, which is I'm big with them anyway. But yeah, I mean,
that hotline.
You're
BSAS,
a big shot
the
there.
helpline at BSAS.
Okay. Well, that's our show for the week. Thank you to the great Mike Weber. Thank you to Joey Carroll, comedian extraordinaire, the pride of Winthrop. I think that's where Mike Brusione's from too, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
The pride
Remember,
of.
I'm a transplant. I grew up in Cambridge.
That's right. There you go. All right. Well, have a great week, everybody. We will see you next time on The Map, or not The Map, Mental Matters. Oh, see ya.
We'll see you
See
at
ya, everyone.
M&M.
All right.
Matters.
Got you. Take care, everybody.
Take care, everyone.
Bye. Bye.
Bye, Joey. Bye, Chris.